Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zach and Sean and Ryan are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to Movie Film. This is episode 75, brought to you by Mr. Boy Productions. My name is Zaki Hassan, and as always, joining me on this magical journey, I have my friend Brian Hall.
Hey, Zaki. 75 episodes. What is, if we were to give anniversary gifts to each other, what would 75 be? What is that one?
This would be the aluminum anniversary.
Aluminum?
I think. Aluminum.
Precious stones.
Aluminum is precious. You use it to wrap sandwiches after you eat them.
Yeah.
And put them in the fridge.
This might be, I'd be disappointed if I looked up at 75, like such a milestone. It's like, it's glass cups. You know?
Well, bear in mind, this is not years, this is episodes. So we're like, there's like a whole different strata.
Yeah.
I feel like when we hit 75 years, that will not be an interesting show, actually, if we've been doing it for 75 years.
Yeah.
We'd be like Waldorf and Statler.
Yeah. Huh? What? Huh?
Yeah.
What?
It'll be a lot of that. That's
we still get
exactly
listeners. It'd be amazing.
Thousands and thousands of listeners, we would hope. So, hey, before we get to all the fun and frivolity which we have planned, I wanted to point out, well, this is episode 75. What better time to introduce a new feature for the show from here on in? This is exciting. Now, as longtime listeners know, we've had the same theme song from the beginning, and it talks about how we have Zachy, Sean, and Brian talking about movies. And, of course, again, if you've been listening a long time, you know that Sean was the third part of our triad. We're very excited. And then he got assassinated by the actual triads. Yeah, he was
the actual triad.
He was smuggling cocaine and he didn't tell us. So I know, of course, he did join us a few weeks ago, but he's just too busy. He dropped off the schedule. So the thing people keep asking all the time, they ask two questions. When will you and Brian finally settle all the sexual tension? That's question number one. And I say it'll ruin the show. We got to keep the going. Yeah. But the second question is, when are you going to update the theme song? Get this all the time. All the time. Random people on the street come up to me. People ringing me up at Target are like, when is there going to be a new theme song?
Yeah.
So we're very excited. Now I asked Sean, because Sean, he is a friend. He was here from the beginning. And I said, Sean, would you mind? We want to keep you as part of the show. In spirit, at least. So can you sing us and create a new theme song for us? So he very graciously did that. He came through just actually moments before we started recording. So actually, we haven't even had a chance to listen to the recording. It's fresh off, but I figure, this is a momentous occasion, I think, and Brian, I'm sure you would agree. We're experiencing it for the same time, and the audience should experience it right with us.
Absolutely.
Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are two ungrateful dickwads. I hope the show fails so I can laugh at them.
Okay, so obviously Sean has made his feelings about the show clear.
He took a side.
He that took a turn. It took a turn. It swerved a little bit. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for that, Sean. Big thanks. And in all honesty, Sean is a part of. He's part of the foundation of this show. So, it was very important for me to have him remain involved, even as he's obviously moved on to bigger and better things, because we just don't matter to him anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of things that don't matter anymore, a new movie is out, and it stars actors who don't matter anymore, interacting with things that don't matter anymore. I'm talking, of course, about Pixels, which stars Adam Sandler.
That's how you really feel.
Well, let me talk about the movie first. It stars Adam Sandler. By the way, it's directed by Chris Columbus, which
I know, which is the one saving grace to me.
And it's funny because until I watched the movie in the theater, I was unaware that Chris Columbus had anything to do with it. So
yeah,
go figure. Because you don't normally associate him with Adam Sandler and his ilk.
Right.
It stars Adam Sandler. It also stars Kevin James, Michelle Monaghan, Josh Gad, and they play. Well, Adam Sandler is like a Geek Squad employee who was champion of video games back in the day, and Kevin James is the president of the United States.
Okay.
So kind of unique casting there, and he's Sandler's childhood friend. So essentially, what happens is that the Earth is invaded by giant-sized versions of video game characters. So we're invaded by Galaga and Centipede and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, etc. Basically, all of the video games that Brian, you and I grew up playing on the Atari or in arcades back in the day.
See, it's funny because, not to interrupt you here, but I actually didn't grow up playing those games. I grew up with Super Mario, Zelda, Pac-Man, kind of, because Pac-Man has never really gone away. And that was part of the thing I thought was interesting about this movie. And Donkey Kong, of course, I recognize. Mm-hmm. But I'm not as familiar with, like, Galaga and maybe some of the other characters that are going to be in this movie. So I wondered how that would play, because I know there's no way kids today know what those things are, aside from Pac-Man.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have seen maybe a couple characters I was a little more familiar with, like I said, like Mario or someone. Even if it was like the Koopas that throw the hammers.
The closest we get is the dog from Duck Hunt.
Oh, seriously? Okay, see, that's what I want to see, personally.
There you go. Yeah. So we get Qbert in there, and
right.
and so it's interesting because I didn't hate the movie. It was fine, but I've already forgotten about it, and I saw it about 24 hours ago. It goes in one eye socket and it exits immediately out the other. It's like the definition of disposable summer entertainment. Not a huge amount of laughs. I didn't think I couldn't figure out who the audience for it was.
That was my question to you, actually. Is this a Chris Columbus movie, or is this an Adam Sandler movie?
It's trying to be a Chris Columbus movie, but it ends up being an Adam Sandler movie.
I see.
Okay. You know? And so yeah, it's not something that I would not recommend,
mm-hmm.
but it's not. I can't. It's not worth seeing in the theater, I don't think.
Sure. So it's not out and out bad, but it's not necessarily like.
There's a few chuckles. I think again, like I said, there's inherent comedy in just the idea that Kevin James is playing the president.
Yeah, sure.
I find that funny. And again, Josh Gad is fine. Like even Adam Sandler is fine. Adam Sandler plays a character who basically hangs a lampshade on every joke as it goes, so that like he calls attention. Like I don't know, that I found it distracting.
Sure.
He's kind of, you know what it is, right? It's these characters whose job they're called the arcaders,
mm-hmm.
and their job is to eliminate these video games. So they're essentially the Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Of video games, and you can see in the ads they're even wearing kind of like uniforms.
Yeah.
And so Sandler, if we're carrying that metaphor forward, is meant to be the Venkman character.
Okay.
And no, only Bill Murray can be Bill Murray. You know what I mean?
I see. Sure.
So, it's forgettable, is what I would say.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, you have Peter Dinklage playing, this mulleted kind of guy, and is he supposed to be like a riff on that guy from King of Kong? Whatever his name is, Billy something.
I haven't seen King of Kong actually. Now that.
Oh, okay. For people who are not going to see Pixels because they think it doesn't look very good and they want to see a video game movie, watch the documentary King of Kong. I mean,
that kind of makes sense. I just Googled him.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name. Billy something. He's like this guy with like a mullet.
Billy Mitchell.
Billy Mitchell. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I should watch the movie. I should watch King of Kong and see if it's.
I truly believe people who seek that out will enjoy it. It's a really good documentary.
Okay, well there you go. So
it feels more like a movie than it does, like a narrative movie than it does like an actual real life documentary. In the best way possible. Like you just can't believe it. It's great.
Well, there you go. So not sure about Pixels, but by all means check out.
You'll see King of Kong. Yeah.
Well, we do have some other stuff to talk about, but before we get to headlines, I wanted to share some new listener letters. And just to start things off, we have a new review up on iTunes. This is exciting because this is basically our annual new review on iTunes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. And this is from Jake Olson, who's a regular listener of ours, and he says, seriously, I've been listening for probably the past 20. 20? Really? Out of 75? Jake? What is this? He says, I don't agree with everything they say. Really, Jake? No, I'm just kidding. Yet they always know exactly what they're talking about. You can comment on their Facebook page, and they will write you back, which is great. I always love people who reply. Seriously, I love this podcast. And
Wow.
he is right. If you comment on our Facebook page, we will comment back.
That's absolutely true.
That's our guarantee to
Yeah.
you. So we're happy to engage you on that score.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the comment, Jake. That's awesome.
And worth mentioning again, please do leave your comments for us on our Facebook page because and on iTunes. Leave your reviews on iTunes because we like hearing from you.
It's nice getting feedback too.
Really quickly, another comment that was left on our Facebook page. This is from Doug. He says, I think I'm going to be able to get the wife to listen again with that Amy Schumer piece. We're going to see Trainwreck tomorrow night. Good show, kind of a cool change in routine to not have a new movie necessarily. And yeah, that last episode, which was a week ago, was kind of a switch, right, Brian? I mean, we just kind of we
just
don't
shooting the breeze for a little while about stuff that was going on movie news wise. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I mean, that's what we do. That's why the podcast started. Is just you and I just go back and forth on this stuff and
just doing our thing.
Yeah, I'm curious how we lost Doug's wife.
I don't think she ever listened.
Oh, I thought he said I can maybe get her back again.
I think he meant I listened to it and then I'll listen to it again with her.
Oh, I see. I was like,
what I mean?
Something we said.
You know what? We don't really. This has been my experience. We don't speak necessarily to the wives' demographic, and I say that from my own personal experience because my wife does not listen to this show.
Sure.
She's made very clear that she wants nothing to do with me or this show. So there we go. I'm hoping that's the goal. What's funny though is that my kids actually want to hear it.
Oh, really?
So my oldest will be like, "Hey, can we hear the new movie film show?" And I have to be mentally do I swear in this one? I have to be aware of that.
That's funny.
Also, we got a letter here. What's that?
Hey, if he listens, I'm saying hello. Hi, Hamza.
There you go. This he'll listen many years from now, archivally, as he's trying to find out about his dad,
who his father was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't be bothered to do the whole Michael Keaton thing, so I'm just listen to the show. Occasionally, I speak to you about stuff, but we got an email that took a dark turn. I just want to.
I know.
I just realized as I was talking, I realized what my life is about. I was like, oh, okay. Well, anyway, so this is an email from Kendra, and this is directed to you, Brian.
Oh.
It says, Brian, have you found a TV show to fill your heart the way Breaking Bad did previously?
Oh, wow. Man, yeah, I was all in on Breaking Bad, and I have to say it was a show that was going alongside that, Mad Men, which recently ended. That was another show. I was talking about this with someone at work, and I was like, there was never one moment. I know a lot of people sort of fell out of that show. There was never one moment I was not all in with Mad Men either. I just love that world and its characters and everything, and so I was really sad to see that go because that felt like with Breaking Bad. One of those sort of long-standing shows I've been with, also setting sail. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I haven't, I watch Game of Thrones, and I like Game of Thrones, but I'm not a fanatic for that show like a lot of people are. I just enjoy it Sunday to Sunday. I really like Silicon Valley. Sure. But again, it's not something that sort of consumes my thoughts or my emotions. It's just a fun little throwaway, 30 minutes. I started watching Mr. Robot. Have you been watching that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Okay. It had a really great pilot. and I've found that I don't know that each episode has lived up to that pilot so far. I'm going to continue seeing where it goes, but yeah, I guess to answer Kendra's question, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have a show that's really filled that place in my heart. But if she has a recommendation, I will gladly hear it. I'd love to have a show like that. Yeah.
So hit us up, Kendra.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Brian needs to know. I don't. It's weird. I have the only show that I really like in the past year made it a point to watch regularly. Notwithstanding Walking Dead, I think everyone listening knows that I watch that. That's like the only show that my wife and I get to watch together. But The Flash, I love The Flash, man.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I've heard it's really good.
I was a lot more into Arrow.
Right.
And that's it. I don't dislike it, but it's not a show that I make it a point to watch. Whereas The Flash is probably the best superhero TV show I've ever seen. Wow. I think just the way it uses the genre and yet it doesn't feel ashamed of the genre. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, for sure. It's good stuff. You should watch it. All right. Yeah, maybe you should put it on Netflix. I've also wanted to check out Peggy Carter. Yeah, the Agent Carter show. Yeah, or that's what it's called, Agent Carter. Yeah, I've heard that's really good, and I guess it was kind of a shorter run, like maybe 8 episodes. It's 10 episodes, I think. 10 episodes. No, sorry, it's 8 episodes. The second season will be 10 episodes. Okay, like hearing that it was just 8 episodes and it was pretty solid. I've been like keeping an eye out for when that's gonna like pop up somewhere I can watch it. Yeah, well, it's on Hulu, right? And I have Hulu, and the problem with Hulu is that it sucks. Why? Because of the ads? Well, because it's not even the ads. Like, I'll tolerate the ads, right? But their video player is just glitchy and stupid, right? So what it'll do is it'll like go to ads, and then it has to rebuffer the show and jump you back to where you were. Okay. And then occasionally it'll take you back to the beginning of the episode. Occasionally it'll pick up where you left off, and then it'll jump back to right after the ad, and then play again, and it'll jump back again, and you go through this like 5 times. Wow, for being like the top streaming site for television shows, I'm surprised that it's that bad. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that you have Hulu because you get to watch it the next day. Right. Sure. And so that's the incentive. Now what I've heard is that they're planning a new service spun off of Hulu called Noah. Okay. And that would be No Ads Hulu. That's true? They're actually calling it Noah? Noah, yeah. And it would be, you would pay like $3 more or whatever it is. And I'm like, you know what? I would pay $3 more to not have ads. I would absolutely pay $3 for no ads. Right. Yeah. So that's something that is likely happening, which would make me very happy because it makes, because it's a lot of the shows that I watch, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, et cetera. It's like, I don't want to deal with the ad situation, Right. Yeah. But Agent Carter is very good, and we'll talk about this more later in the episode. But I love how it adds a little bit of texture into the Marvel universe in a fun way. Sure. And I've said this before, man. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has improved significantly since the beginning of the series. Yeah, I've heard that. I just don't care. Yeah. That's funny. Well, and before we get to headlines, I wanted to share the interview I conducted recently with playwright, screenwriter Jeffrey Hatcheras, who wrote the screenplay for a movie that's in theaters right now, playing in limited release, called Mr. Holmes. The film stars Ian McKellen as a 90-something Sherlock Holmes who reflects on his last case, and it's directed by Bill Condon. So the two of them previously worked together in a movie called Gods and Monsters, which I don't know if you've seen. Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. It's really good, if you haven't seen that. But I loved Mr. Holmes. I loved that it was yet another take on Sherlock Holmes, and yet it proved to be just as compelling and interesting, and it felt new in its own ways. I had an absolute blast talking to him, and I have a feeling you'll enjoy listening to it too. So let's go ahead and play that. My first question, and I guess there's no better person to ask than you. Sherlock Holmes has the distinction of having been portrayed by more actors, but more different iterations than anyone else. Right now, we're in the midst of Johnny Lee Miller on CBS. We got Benedict Cumberbatch occasionally on the BBC. We got Robert Downey Jr. still doing his thing. And then we have, of course, Ian McKellen. What is it about Sherlock Holmes that makes him so elastic?
Well, I'd like to say it's something about the Victorian era It's the same that you can say about some Dickens characters, that there's a high theatricality in terms of this is exactly what he looks like, feels like, sounds like, but there's also just enough of a gap, into which you can fill other things. And those other things can be the actor's persona. It can be the time period that it takes place in. Obviously, we like him because he's a hero.
Right.
I mean, he is like Bond and Robin Hood and all the rest. But so he's on the good guy side. We like the fact that he doesn't resort to brawn and fist and all that sort of thing. And I think that there's loneliness and sadness too. I don't think that one would have thought about Robin Hood that way, or some of the other heroes.
Our image of Robin Hood is laughing merrily.
Yeah. Now, I think that's sometimes because people don't read closely. If you read James Bond closely, you can see sadness and emptiness, which the new films pick up
very much
rather
so.
well.
Yeah.
But it is there in Fleming. You can find it. But Sherlock seems to be able to accommodate himself to many different views and still remain who he is. I don't know if Conan Doyle would have said, "Oh, yes, that's exactly what I meant." But that elasticity has allowed everything from the Victorian Edwardian portrayal on stage when William Gillette did it. You can hear his recordings and you imagine a very stentorian kind of Holmes.
Right.
During the war, it makes perfect sense that Basil Rathbone was Holmes.
Right.
No doubt, a little glint of superiority, a little bit of humor. It made sense come the 80s that Jeremy Brett was cracked.
That's my Holmes, Jeremy Brett.
Yeah, I remember my favorite Jeremy Brett moments are always him very silent and then going, "Ah!" Which seems like too big, but you are kind of watching a brain that can easily crack and leach out bile and bitterness. So I think Holmes is a good litmus test. It's a good negative impact on things in terms of what's the flip side, what's the highlight, what's the dark side. So I think we're always going to be drawn to that. And what's interesting is when you apply that template to what the actor does, what the writers do, you can almost always tell when some gear grinds in the wrong way. You know what I mean? I think that's the genius of the Sherlock TV show, is that if you described that show to me, I would say, "Oh God, I don't want to see that."
Right.
And then I see it, and I think I know what they're doing. I understand what they're doing. I see why this does work or this doesn't work. It seems to fit nicely in its own niche. I hope we do too. But you can always tell when somebody's trying too hard one way or the other, either to fit in too perfectly or to be too different. Yeah. I like versions of Sherlock, as I would, I suppose, Bond or George Smiley, where you say, yes, this is your version, but it doesn't break with the tradition.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the magic of Holmes in that sense. And I try to think of a modern analog where you have a character that's so elastic, and the only thing I can think of is like something like Batman, for example, where again you can have this many, and again 007.
Part of it is the costume, though. That if you have a character that has a mask to a degree, and I think Holmes has a mask.
Sure.
It's the automaton. I am a machine, Watson, and nothing. I'm brain and nothing else. That's something to hide behind, and that's the mask, and that's the as more so than the cloak and the deerstalker and all those things. But I think it helps if the character is already one step removed from his presentation, whereas Watson is not. He is what he is.
Right.
Whereas Holmes, you always feel that there's something one step behind the curtain.
Well, and that draws to mind parallels with. Obviously you've worked on episodic television with procedurals and things like that. Certainly Columbo, etc. They're all part of that same lineage.
Different though if there's a literary forebear.
Sure.
It's like because there are all the Holmes stories to turn to. There is kind of a Bible. The same way that you could say Smiley and Bond and all that. You can always return to the book and say, well, the book really says this, because there's authority there.
You can go back to source.
Yeah. Whereas I only know this because I knew Falk. I wouldn't say very well, but I knew him knowing how things accumulate from actor to producer to the way television is put together.
Sure.
Authority sometimes doesn't reside where you think it resides.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like the costume thing, because we know
Sure.
now that the deerstalker and the Inverness cape are all the illustrator.
Right.
So at no point does Conan Doyle say, I want him to look like that.
Yeah.
By the same token, Richard Levinson and William Link didn't say, Columbo wears a raincoat. Peter Falk said, I want to wear that raincoat.
Right. Well, and I mean, Columbo was predated Peter Falk, but it's interesting how, unlike Holmes, we can't imagine anybody but like the character almost went away with Peter Falk.
Yeah, it's television does something. Bond is a little bit like that, simply because Sean Connery. The fact that right before Fleming's death, he writes. Well, I think it's 2 books before he writes, and you only live twice that Bond dies, right?
Right.
It's a fake, but he dies. And he gives him Scottish ancestry. Right. And it's a nod to, well, there's this fellow who's playing him in the movie, he's Scottish. It's almost like he does a good job, so I'll do this. But that's a really weird retconning kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I can explain that accent that he can't quite get rid of in the movies by saying this is this here.
Right.
But I think before the 60s, you wouldn't see anything like that. But it's fascinating that all of these guys try to kill their heroes at some point, and they can't. You know?
And it's just because, do they feel that they've become the character has overshadowed them?
Yeah. Well, I mean Conan Doyle is like, oh my God, I've got to really kill him, and he couldn't.
Right.
Even when he wrote him into The Hound of the Baskervilles as, this happened before Reichenbach Falls.
Right.
It's like, no, we want him back alive.
Yeah.
And so, and that happened with Bond too. From Russia with Love, you get the idea he's dead at the end.
Right.
And so everybody gets tired at a certain point.
Yeah.
And
well, in the course of adapting this story, I mean, what did you learn about Holmes that you were surprised by?
Well, when I read the book, the big shocker, of course, was the notion that a defeat of such. I guess Holmes has had defeats before. People have died on his watch, so to speak.
Yeah.
But eventually he wins. There isn't any story where he loses completely. And Mitch came up with a story where he did lose completely. One of the things that's not explained in the stories, it's not a huge mystery, is why Holmes retires to Sussex and becomes a beekeeper.
Right.
It's simply a fact, and you accept it as, well, people get old and they retire. But Mitch says, well, let's find a reason for this. Let's see if there might be something more interesting than I simply retired. So that was the most interesting thing initially. Following that was trying to come up with, as he did, relationships with people in the day-to-day. Because Holmes is always understood in relationship to an investigation. It's like people who don't meet anybody romantically except through work.
Yeah.
Actors are like this.
Sure.
It's like, gee, everybody I've ever dated was in the theater, Holmes only seems to meet people through investigation. So to see him meet people in terms of a domestic situation is very interesting. Of course, that turns into an investigation too, right. But not the level of The Hound of the Baskervilles, say, right. And a very ruminative one. I thought it was a lovely story also about Holmes embracing fiction. And it's to my knowledge the only Holmes story written post Conan Doyle in which Holmes is aware of himself as a fictional creation as well. Naturally it's, Watson wrote these books and the books are, exaggerations. Yeah. But it's the only time where you see a man saying, I'm struggling with the way the public perceives me versus the way I know I am myself. And I thought that was just fantastic, In fact, Bill Condon, when we were working on the script, he said, I think it'd be really cool if you went to see a movie where the story he's working on has been turned into like a Basil Rathbone movie.
And that actor is
Yes.
I just found this out as that's he was in Young Sherlock Holmes.
I met him on set and it was just amazing. He's like 51 now. He's like 6'4". There's a down the rabbit hole kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And he was a lovely guy. But Bill said, wouldn't it be cool if we see that, in a 40s kind of way?
That's great.
Because in that case, you're seeing Holmes' reality digested through Watson's rewrite, digested through Hollywood's version.
Wow.
And some of my favorite shots of McKellen in the movie are McKellen looking at it like, oh, what a bunch of crap.
Well, let's talk about Ian McKellen, who is fantastic. Which, I mean, that's like a statement that can apply to anything. Yeah. At what point was he involved? Did you write knowing that he was?
No, because the early drafts of the script, popped out years and years ago. He was always somebody that was more than on the radar. Mm-hmm. But when Bill got involved, I want to say 3 years ago,
they already had the history.
Yeah, exactly. So. He said, I want to do the script. I want to do it with Ian. I want to do it when Ian's free because he had a very busy schedule. In fact, at some point we were supposed to do it in 2 parts. Like he would be 6 weeks, then a break of 2 months, but that didn't happen. So once he came on, it was like, fantastic. Everything fell into place. And he brings a lot of wonderful baggage with him. There's a lot of authority that comes through. That's nobody ever asked him before.
Right.
It's bizarre how many people have walked into this world, but not him.
Right. Well, to me, it's like Ian McKellen as Sherlock Holmes sold.
Yeah. Really, it's and it's what's lovely about it too is that his respect for it is you can tell he's not doing things in quotes. Of course, there's no camp. There's no winking at it, which would be easy to do. He takes it very straight. And some of the things I like best in the film are whenever he's talking about the difference between the character and himself, where he says things like, I prefer cigars, and then he says, well, actually, I do smoke a pipe, but it seems silly to do so after Watson had made such a big deal about it. So it's a man struggling with his own persona within the quotes that other people have put it in.
Right.
It's almost about consciousness and self-consciousness.
Right.
Well, okay, so Mr. Holmes it's in limited release right now, but it's worth seeking out, and I would expect it'll expand into your area before too long.
Yeah, no, I can't remember if you talked about it on the show or if we talked about it in real life, but like you completely built up this movie, and said how great it was, and I'm really it's been on my radar because of your recommendation, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. Yeah.
Well, I hope you do. I hope you get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
But moving on to headlines, a little bit of sad news just to start things off. Alex Rocco has passed away, actor Alex Rocco, and even if you don't know his name, you know his face, and if you don't know his face, you know his voice. He was probably best known, I would say, for playing Mo Green in the original Godfather.
Right.
You know who I am? I'm Mo Green. That's my Mo Green impression. That's all I got.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much. Well, it's he's the guy who he's running the casino in Vegas, right? And if you remember, Michael tries to buy him out.
Yeah.
And Michael sent Fredo to work with him, and he's like, I had to straighten out your brother, and Michael's like, you straightened my brother out, and he's like, he was banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time.
I can hear that in his voice.
But he says, you know who I am? I'm Mo Green. And so that's kind of what he's best known for. But I think for Brian, certainly for our generation, I think just as important as Mo Green is his character of Roger Myers Jr. On The Simpsons. And he's, of course, the guy who runs the Itchy and Scratchy animation company.
Yep. And funny enough, I was just going to say, I just on HBO one night, I was falling asleep. It was like midnight, and That Thing You Do started up.
Oh, okay.
And I watched the whole thing. I stayed up to like 2 a.m. watching it. And I forgot he has a part in there. And he does his total, like, hey, why didn't someone tell me this sandwich had, like, whatever in it? And I was like, oh, man, like that guy, he just had that
guy.
Yeah.
Well, again, a lot of these character actors, they're the glue,
Yep. Yeah,
and
for
you look
sure.
at this guy's resume, his filmography. I mean, he never stopped working. He's still got stuff that's in the pipeline right now that's due for release. But from 2015, 2016, going all the way back to 1965, he never stopped working, which is amazing. So, Alex Rocco, 79 years old. Just the glue, movie glue.
Movie glue.
It's a
Great
loss.
voice.
Great voice, exactly. Another person who just passed away recently, and we talked about him before, is of course James Horner. And Brian, I don't know about you, but I've been listening to a lot of James Horner music lately.
Yeah, I did too, actually. I can't remember which site it was, but some movie site put just like a playlist of all his stuff, and I was listening to it while I was at work, and it was really nice.
Have you discovered anything new or rediscovered something where you're like, oh yeah, that was really good?
Glory. I mean, I was already familiar with it, but it wasn't something that I listened to regularly. And listening to it, I was like, man, this is like, if someone had a career and this was the only thing they were known for, they'd still be worth mentioning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's such a solid score. And then, but with him, that was just one of the many.
I just 2 days ago, I watched the trailer for Castaway. And it's interesting because Castaway is Robert Zemeckis, so you'd think they would use Alan Silvestri music in the trailer, but they used James Horner's Braveheart music.
Oh, interesting.
And it fits so perfectly that I almost liked it better in the Castaway trailer than in Braveheart. You know what I mean? It was that good. Yeah. Look, I haven't seen that trailer in 15 years since that movie came out, and I remember seeing, because before that movie came out, before the trailer came out, I was like, I don't know that I had any real interest in seeing Castaway. And then I saw the trailer. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta watch this.
Yeah.
So do check that out. But some news about James Horner, which I love this story. I don't know if you had a chance to see this. James Horner. So before he died, he was planning to do the music for a remake of The Magnificent Seven, which is being directed by Antoine Fuqua. Whether there should be a remake of The Magnificent Seven is probably a separate conversation. But regardless, he'd passed away, and it looked like it wasn't going to happen. But it turns out that after he passed away, Antoine Fuqua received a delivery. And James Horner had, before he died, just based on the script, written the music for The Magnificent Seven.
Right. Yeah.
He was so inspired by the script, so he didn't get to compose it, or conduct it rather, but he composed it. And he just, as a surprise to Antoine Fuqua, he just had the script delivered. So it's like this package from beyond the grave that arrived.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty amazing.
So this is the quote from Antoine Fuqua. So he sort of lionizes James Horner, and he says, "I just found out a few days ago his team flew out here to Baton Rouge, and they brought me all the music for The Magnificent Seven. He already wrote it for me based on the script. He did it all off the script because he wanted to surprise me. I thought it was a gift or something, and they all came out here and said, Antoine, James wrote the music for Magnificent Seven already, and it's just glorious. So that's my memory of James." Now, the script, obviously we don't know anything about it, but the movie stars Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Luke Grimes. Wow! So not a bad cast.
Good cast, good director. Sounds like it's going to be great music. I don't know. Hopefully, it'll be pretty solid.
I wonder if he'd had a chance to work on anything for Avatar 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that movie, you got to say, in this day and age when everyone knows everything about where every project is at now, inevitably, we have no idea where that movie is at. I mean, they could be shooting right now. They could still be, doing R&D, on everything right now. We have no idea.
When is the sequel scheduled to come out?
I don't know, because I feel like it keeps changing, right?
Yeah.
It was, supposed to be, maybe, 2 years from now, and now it's going to be, even more than that or something. I don't even remember.
But we've got 4 more of them coming, so
we do indeed.
Yeah. So there we go. Moving on, other headlines, and I have to give credit here. This one was passed on to us through our email address, moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com, and Pervez Ahmed sent it to me. He is, of course, my co-host on the Diffused Congruence show. and the article is Comic-Con shows signals that of shifting times for big movies. And essentially, the gist of this is that Comic-Con is no longer what it used to be, Brian.
How so?
Well, we're having no shows right, and it used to be that all the big movies, all the upcoming stuff would be high. Like Comic-Con was the place you go for that.
Right, sure.
And now that's not really the case anymore. So
well, I don't know.
This your Marvel?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I was going to say, without this article, I don't know that would. I would imagine that was the case, because I felt like this year, not only, I mean, did we see Star Wars, and we saw, Batman finally, a coherent trailer, and we saw Suicide Squad, so we saw the new Joker for the first time. And not only that, but I was talking about this with someone. This is the first year I remember all these things appearing on the front page of like Yahoo. You know what I mean? So it actually, to me, felt like kind of a big year.
Well, I mean, in terms of a few select properties, it was big.
Okay, sure. Well, so now Marvel, you're saying Marvel didn't.
Okay, so Marvel skipped out. Usually they do their big Hall H panel.
Mm-hmm.
They skipped the convention entirely. Star Wars, they were there, but honestly, all we got was, and not all because that minimizes it, but I mean, it feels like they're saving their big stuff for the Disney convention later, like next month, right?
Well, that will be interesting, because I actually thought, for hearing that they weren't going to show any footage, and then still having the panel that they did, and showing the behind-the-scenes video, which I thought was, in my opinion, as good as a trailer, really.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess they had that huge concert outside for everybody. Like, it sounded like a pretty show-stopping event.
Okay. For the Star Wars part.
For Star Wars. Yeah, so I would be curious then to compare it to D23 once that actually happens, and see if they, finally like blow their load over there, and then like, no, but seriously, here's everybody in the movie doing something. See how much further they go. I think that would be interesting. But otherwise, I thought it wasn't a bad showing.
See, I think that what we've seen in years past is that stuff that gets greeted like astoundingly at Comic-Con does not translate into awareness or appeal beyond the Comic-Con crowd.
Depending on what it is. Like Scott Pilgrim, obviously.
Scott Pilgrim's a big one. Dread is another one.
Okay. But I would have never imagined Dread was going to be a big movie to begin with.
And it wasn't. It was the opposite of a big movie.
Yeah. I would never put money on that to be a big movie.
But based on the Comic-Con reaction, it's like, oh my gosh, this is we're going to print money with this.
Sure.
Right? And this is my prediction. People are sort of losing their mind over Deadpool, and I don't know if you've seen the bootleg version of the trailer that leaked for that.
Yes.
My prediction is that that movie's not going to do as well as people seem to be thinking it'll do.
I think it's going to do well with its crowd.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, if Fox is smart, they should be happy about that. Like, that movie, you shouldn't spend too much on that movie, and you should make the movie exactly what it is and be happy that its people like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that movie's not going to be like a... I mean, I can see it maybe getting up to 100 million. Maybe.
That'd be a push. That'd be a push.
But maybe. Just maybe. But, like, it's not going to go over that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's one that should make, like, 75 or something, and you should be like, great, perfect.
I also, I wonder if Comic-Con is losing a lot of its luster, or at least some of its luster, by virtue of the fact that, people don't have to be waiting in line for days to see this stuff,
I hear that, and I understand that concern even, but it doesn't show any signs of slowing down to me. You know what I mean? Like, I saw this graphic where they actually showed like almost like a helicopter shot of the convention center, and then they traced what the line was to get in for the Star Wars panel.
Sure.
And it was unbelievable how long it was.
That's ridiculous.
So I just feel like no matter what, even if numbers do go down, like they're never not. I can't see any time in the near future that Comic-Con not selling out.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many people that want to go still. You know, it's about being there. You know, like I can watch. You know, I can't think of something comparable right now. But I was gonna say there's a lot of things you can watch on television, or you can like a concert even. You can watch a concert on DVD.
Right.
But would you rather see the concert live? You know, and I feel like there's that sort of air about it.
Right.
For
Now,
certain people, not everybody.
You did not go this year.
No.
But you did get a day off.
I did from work, yes.
So you benefited from it.
Yeah, so I don't want Comic-Con to slow down at all. I want
really
a day
what this is about.
Friday off in July. Yeah.
So that's going to be something to think about. Now, Paramount didn't have much of a presence in it. I mean, obviously Marvel didn't show up, but Paramount wasn't there. They didn't really have anything big to promote. Sony wasn't there, even though they've got Spider-Man to talk about. They've also got Ghostbusters to talk about. Didn't really show up. Yeah. Well, and to that point, I mean, we've been getting Ghostbusters news in dribs and drabs. I think we talked about last time that I'm feeling actively apathetic about this. I'm combating my just general not wanting the movie to exist. But some exciting news broke, Brian.
Oh,
here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Aaron Gilbert.
Yes.
Jillian Holtzman. Abby Yates. Patty Tolan.
I don't know who those people are, but I would follow them anywhere.
Well, if you have a ghost problem, now you know who to call.
Oh! Wait, what?
Well, these are the names of the new Ghostbusters.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't care. I don't know why this was released. Like it was meant to mean something, and I don't care.
Well, that's because you're a misogynist.
It's
if you're not interested in this movie, you're a misogynist.
That's the problem. I've run into this situation where it's like there's no way to discuss my apathy towards this without bumping straight into that.
Right.
It's deeply upsetting. But regardless, so I personally was hoping for like Petra Venkman and Rayona Stantz and Igona Spengler and Win Stone
Winnie
Zedmore.
Yep.
So that didn't happen. I'm a little disappointed by that. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Again, I don't have the deep ties that you have with Ghostbusters, but we'll see. I have, there's nothing we can say until we see it. So.
Well, by the way, one person who will be appearing in the film is Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, that's right.
I think my theory about that is that he just kind of showed up on set.
I hate feeling that way, but I get that feeling from him these days, unfortunately.
They're like, hey, do you want to, I guess, do a cameo?
He's like, do I?
Yeah. You know what's funny? Actually, he's in Pixels.
Oh, is he really?
He has a little cameo in that. And then there's a scene halfway through the movie where the characters are drinking, and Michelle Monaghan's like, I need the harder stuff or something like that, and she pulls out the Crystal Skull vodka.
No.
And I'm like, was that Dan Aykroyd's like price of admission? Was that
right.
They had to.
It's not a joke. It's not played for laughs.
No, it's not.
Oh, I thought it was sort of like a wink or something.
No, I mean, I feel like it was just like, hey, we're gonna do like product placement of his thing.
Oh, that's funny. Well,
yeah,
whatever, good for him.
I don't know. But regardless of that, before we move on to the big spoiler portion of the show, do we have any Star Wars news?
Star Wars news we have. Oh, Yoda style.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. No, well, it sounds like we have news about like villains, upcoming villains.
Okay.
And so we got episode 7 coming up now. That's great, right? But episode 8, let's not count that out just yet. Let's talk about episode 8. Let's get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So Rian Johnson is writing and directing that. That's coming out, May 26, 2017, which is a much more Star Wars-y date, May 26th. And it's looking like Benicio del Toro might be playing a villain in there.
Okay.
So, who's he going to play? We don't know. Probably won't know until May 26th, 2017. But, yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I can see it, right? I mean, he was most recently seen in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
See, I want him to play the same character. I want to see an even bigger shared universe.
Okay, yeah. See Star-Lord hopping in, but I would rather it just be one of those things where they bump into each other in a bar and then look each other up and down and go, huh? Nah, and then just keep walking.
What's that? What does that happen in? I feel like that's from something. Oh, in Maverick. Remember in Maverick?
Yeah.
Danny
Glover and Mel Gibson. Yeah. Actually, I would really, really not like to see that. That was a joke. But and then also, Ben Mendelsohn has been mentioned to be, I guess, the villain in Star Wars Rogue One.
Okay.
So he was in Dark Knight Rises, and he was kind of that villain that Bane tosses around. I can't think of his name, who he actually played, but he's the Weasley guy.
Yes,
exactly. That's the best way to describe him. Kind of the Weasley guy.
He's like your go-to Weasley guy.
Can't you kind of see him actually in Imperial garb?
Oh yeah,
you know
totally.
What I mean? And being like, we can't let these plans get out of here, okay?
He'd be like, he'd be like that.
Yeah, exactly. Then the plans, they do get away. Oh, that's kind of weird, right? We know that happens.
That's true. See, so
we don't know who we're going to lose.
So okay. That I was going to ask, where does the drama come from? Now we know.
Yeah,
that makes sense to me.
I'm curious what the plans are going to look like. Are they going to be on a flash drive or?
No, it'll be a scroll.
It's weird because that's what I'm picturing, but that makes no sense.
That's obviously
yeah.
It'll be like in a plastic, like an architect tube.
Yeah, right. With a little strap around the shoulder.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I choose to believe is.
Or it'll be like it was in frickin' Attack of the Clones. Is that what it was? Where the little creature had that little hollow thing it holds in its hand, and then it projects a holographic image, above.
There you go. By the way, how terrible is Imperial construction when it takes them 20 years to build that thing?
Right.
They start building it at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Actually, I'm gonna stop you there, Zachy.
Okay.
Because I read an article about the construction of the Death Star. Actually, it was an article about the people who figured out how much it would cost.
Okay.
And it was they did it as a joke, and it became viral, blah, blah, blah. And they actually did the math of how much it would cost, how much steel it would take.
This is where they submitted the request to the president, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Remember there was the petition?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I didn't know we were going to talk about. I say this all the time. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I don't have the article in front of me. But it was
we're a well-oiled machine, folks.
Yeah, well, it was it would cost a quadrillion dollars, and it was it would take 100 million years to make. It was impossible to make. So 20 years is actually not bad.
You are full of crap.
But they obviously got more expedient because then for Return of the Jedi, they had that. That was 3/4 done.
I feel like between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, there's a really funny movie about. It's Gung Ho. Have you seen Gung Ho?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Gung Ho is where Michael Keaton and his ragtag group of car makers, they have to just finish these cars on deadline. So by the end, they're just it's cars with no engines and there's no windshields and stuff just to meet their deadline. I feel like there's a version of that movie about the building of the second Death Star just to meet their deadline.
Well, Zachy, they're doing that. They're going to make a Star Wars movie every year for who knows how many years. Why not pitch what happens between Empire and Jedi and make your Star Wars Gung Ho movie?
Star Wars Gung Ho. That's Star Wars anthology. Yeah. Gung Ho.
The first Star Wars comedy.
Hey, why not? It could happen.
Good idea.
Remember they were going to do that animated comedy series a couple years ago.
What was that called?
Detours. Star Wars Detours.
Right.
Before sanity prevailed.
Right.
And they were
they had 60 episodes in the can.
They're done. Sitting in a drawer somewhere.
That is crazy.
And they will never see the light of day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, they were made basically on a lark that George Lucas had.
Right.
Hey, we should funny if we made fun of Star Wars. And everyone around him was like, okay,
all right.
You know, I mean, when the boss says so, what do you do, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'll throw out there. I didn't know we were going to mention this, but I started watching, or rewatching, I should say, the documentary Empire of Dreams.
Oh, so good. Excellent.
So good. It's a bonus feature on the Star Wars DVDs, I think, and it's actually the whole thing's on YouTube. That's where I started watching it again because I couldn't be bothered with pulling out my Star Wars DVDs.
That's how lazy we are. Isn't that sad?
Yeah. But anyway, it's a great. I think it's like 2.5 hours, and it's just like a solid. You know, it's one of those documentaries that talks about Star Wars obviously in detail, but it also sort of sets up the time and the culture and George Lucas's career, and really gives you context for the films, which I think is. I mean, who doesn't know a lot of the details about that stuff? So it's really cool to hear a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like you said, it's on YouTube. So absolutely do check that out.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the main event in this episode. We're of course going to talk about Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
This is the latest release from Marvel Studios. They just came out with Avengers: Age of Ultron a couple of years ago. It feels like a couple of years ago. It's actually just a couple months ago. It really does feel like forever ago, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And up until recently, that was the movie movie of the year, but that's been displaced by Jurassic World. But Marvel is back, and the movie opened to $57.2 million over the 3-day weekend. Let's talk about our reactions to the movie, as we usually do, and then we can segue into spoilers. That sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So, well, Brian, I'm assuming at this point you've read my review.
I haven't, actually, because now it's kind of become a thing where I like talking about this stuff like unsullied with you on the show. So I'll probably read it later tonight.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, I'm assuming you know how I feel about it.
Yes, I got the gist of it.
You got the gist of it. Okay. So why don't you start and tell me your take, and then I'll offer mine.
Well, I think we've become so used to Marvel being Marvel, success. Let's just call it success. Like a success is coming out this weekend.
Sure.
And with Ant-Man, I felt the same thing. I was like, yeah, this looks a little more weirder and sort of like Ant-Man, But again, in my head, I'm like, success is coming out in a month.
Sure.
And I told you, I think on the last episode, I had a friend come out to visit who's just a total normal guy, works in the business world, loves movies, but pays, attention to them like the average person. And we passed the billboard, and he goes, Ant-Man? What is that? Like, seriously, have they run... Okay, they've run out of stuff. Ant-Man? and that was the first time I was like, no, it's a Marvel movie. It's a success. You know what I mean? And he wasn't having it. He was like, I don't know. If you see it and it's good, let me know. And I was like, oh. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, okay. Maybe, I don't know. It's an unknown. And a lot of people have pointed out that, it didn't make Marvel money this past weekend. And I think that's really interesting because I feel like of a lot of the recent Marvel movies, this one I thought was maybe the most accessible in a while. And in a way I think that's good, and in a way I think it makes it also maybe one of the least surprising entries in a while.
Sure.
Like I felt like maybe this movie was a little boilerplate. Okay. And it's here's a guy, and then he's introduced to this thing, and then he refuses it, and then he decides, okay, I'll do this, but I've got to try, and then it doesn't work, but then he gets better at it, and then it happens, and then it works out.
Huh.
And it's funny because it sounds like I didn't like it, but I actually did. Because they took that trope, and that is the biggest trope in the history of storytelling.
Sure.
But they filled it, they cast it with people that I like. I defy you to dislike Paul Rudd. I would love to meet a person who doesn't like Paul Rudd and then try to figure out what's wrong with him. And they take a concept that is silly, and they treat it as silly, but they also treat it as, well, this is what we're doing, so here's how it's going to work, and you're going to enjoy it. And I did. You know what I mean? But like it didn't, I wouldn't say it pulled any punches necessarily. So I think for people who are overly familiar with movies, it's going to be a little less of a thrill ride, maybe. But I imagine everyone's going to find this movie enjoyable But I think for people who are more well-versed in Marvel or they're more well-versed in movies and storytelling, it might feel a little overly familiar. But I think for people who just don't think about that stuff and just want to go to the movies and have a good time, I am sure they're going to have a good time with this movie.
Yeah.
So that's basically how I felt about Ant-Man. That's the gist of it. So what about you?
So I've seen it twice now.
Okay.
I watched it. Obviously, I went to the press show, and then I took my kids this past weekend. And I knew this before they watched it, but it was borne out by my experience watching them. They were more engaged by this film than just about any of the other Marvel movies they've seen, including the Avengers.
Wow. Yeah, sure.
They were sitting up in their seat, leaning towards the screen. They were laughing uproariously. And I realized that this movie is aimed at them.
Yep.
And
this is Yep. Sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, this felt the most family friendly.
Yeah.
Like more like a family film. And again, I mean it in a good way. Like it reminded me, there was actually, I'll get more into this later, but there was a moment where I was like, this reminds me of the movies I grew up watching.
Yeah.
Like, I won't go so far as to say Amblin because of, little nuanced reasons because of why I went to work. But like, it really did. Like this reminded me of movies that I watched in the 80s that I really loved.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I took my 4-year-old to this. And normally I didn't take him to Avengers, for example, but I was like,
Right.
It's okay for him. And like 3 days later, he's like, remember in Ant-Man when blah, 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 blah? Remember in Ant-Man? And I was like, for him, he doesn't have any experience. For him, Ant-Man might as well be Iron Man. Yep.
Or Batman or whatever.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for me, this is what I wrote in my review. I was like, the superhero origin is like this. It's like a genre of itself.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like its own genre within the superhero genre. And there's this template that you can play riffs on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it sounds like a great cover, and sometimes it sounds like a garage band.
Right.
And so with Green Lantern, we got the garage band.
Right. With
this, we got a good cover.
Yep.
Because in terms of structure, it's Iron Man. It's Iron Man 1.
Uh-huh.
It with some variations, it's basically the same thing. We've got a new technology that we're trying to keep hidden. The bad guy who's a co-worker of the hero tries to take it for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a bald bad guy, actually, both times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we end with a showdown between the main hero, or in this case, the main hero's surrogate, who's, Paul Rudd, and then the bad guy, who are both using a variation of that technology.
Right.
Right? So the story itself didn't offer any real surprises per se, but it offered the pleasure of just telling the story very well.
Yeah, enjoyably. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's my take. Shall we get into it a little bit?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I wanted to
spoiler wall.
So as we breach the spoiler wall, I wanted to start by sharing an article that Devin Faraci wrote over at Birth Movies Death. I don't know if you've seen this.
I'm familiar with him, but yeah.
Well, he has an article up where he says, and by the way, that's like the new. It used to be Badass Digest, now it's called Birth Movies Death.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a good site, so do check that out for movie news. But he has an article, an ode to Ant-Man's most triumphant scene. And I agree with all of this. I'm going to try to sum this up, and then I want to get your take on this. He says, Ant-Man's best scene isn't an action sequence or even one of the comedic training montages. It's the scene that truly pays off the movie's heart. It's Scott at the dinner table with his family at the end.
I already agree. Yep.
Yeah. So here's what he says. In another film, that scene wouldn't exist. It's easy to imagine the version of this movie where Scott Lang, forced to go on the run after the events of the story, sits outside the house in his van, looking in on the family he lost in order to serve the greater good.
Right.
It's also easy to imagine a version where during the finale, Scott totally humiliates Paxton who's played by Bobby Cannavale, or Paxton humiliates himself, allowing Scott to become the alpha male of the house, maybe even running Paxton out of the picture. Instead, the movie has Scott joining the family, complete with Paxton, for dinner that's at first awkward and then becomes more comfortable. Paxton brings Scott into the workings of the family by sharing video of Cassie doing somersaults. Instead of making this a pointed reminder that Scott has been missing out on his daughter's life, the one-time antagonist creates a bridge to include him. The capper on the scene for me is the revelation that the bizarre, overgrown ant that made for such a great gag in the final battle is present, surreptitiously being fed by Cassie under the table, a strange-looking dog for a strange-looking family. Right. This represents the fact that the weirdness of Scott's new life has been accepted and absorbed by his family. He's Ant-Man, and they're okay with that.
Yeah.
So I read that, and I was like, exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, because, the Bobby Cannavale character, who is, he's the foil.
Exactly.
Paul Rudd, because he's not only the stepdad, he's a cop, and he doesn't, and this movie starts, we haven't really set up the plot, but Paul Rudd starts this movie as a thief. He's in jail, and he's sort of a Robin Hood of thieves, but stealing from some rich corporation and giving it back to the employees who lost money. But he's a criminal, and so he comes back out, and he is the stepfather now to his daughter, who he still loves and is in limited contact with, is a cop. So they have this natural,
antagonism.
Yeah, antagonism, butting of heads or whatever, and so, and you're frustrated, and you don't like the cop character for that reason. Paxton is his character's name.
Yeah. But
I completely agree, and it's like along the way they realize they're sort of working together and they come to understand each other, and then there's that wonderful scene at the end, and it's a really, really lovely, like you said, and for reasons that are even deeper than what we're saying, that it's just a nice moment. It's nice to see a movie portray a fractured and more nuanced and complicated family dynamic, people trying to make it work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of just making the stepdad a jerk. Someone to defeat. And I completely agree. That was a really nice moment, and I think that's says something again why. And I use the word boilerplate, and I stick by that. In terms of the outline of this movie, maybe. But like what Marvel does is they cast really great people doing really good jobs, and they tell things in a really good way. So yes, it's very familiar, but it's told really well, and I think it's a very enjoyable experience. The movie.
Well, so. There's a question that'll always sort of hang over any discussion of this is, what would the Edgar Wright version of Ant-Man have been?
Absolutely, for sure.
And I think that's a valid question in the sense that, we'll probably get like another Kickstarter movie, what happened to Edgar Wright's Ant-Man? Yeah. But I think that question does a little bit of a disservice to what Peyton Reed did do with this.
I completely agree, and I thought that as I was watching the movie, because when it was announced that he was going to take over from Edgar Wright, fanboy favorite, to the director of Bring It On, you know what I mean? Like, it's immediately like, oh boy, all right. And it's easy to sort of, in internet logic, kind of clown on him. But like, dude, I started thinking about this guy afterward, and it's like, he wanted to bring Fantastic Four to the screen years and years ago. Before the version we knew from Fox originally. He's got like deep ties with Back to the Future, all that stuff. Like he very well could be one of us. You know what I mean? Sure. And like he just wants to make a cool movie. And Bring It On, by the way, isn't a bad movie. You know what I mean? Like
not the first one, yeah.
No. And it's just easy to be like dismissive of him in some ways. But like he finally got to make probably a movie he'd been wanting to make for years and years and years, and it's really good. You know what I mean? So it actually makes me really happy for him. That he gets to finally maybe flex the muscles he's been wanting to use for a long time now. Yeah. So, but like you said, you do have to imagine what the Edgar Wright version would have looked like. And it's funny because with the Michael Pena stuff, you kind of wonder if I doubt that was from the Edgar Wright stuff, but the way that he tells stories, and there's always whip pans into the past and characters whipping the other characters and stuff, that felt very Edgar Wright-esque. Yeah. But yeah, you wonder. And I remember I said over a year ago that I was looking more forward to Ant-Man than I was the Avengers because of Edgar Wright. Right. So I'm more in the movie that I'll never get to see because I'm sure it'd be a cool movie. But this was by no means, like a residual of that or something. You know what I mean? Like, this is a good movie on its own.
Well, and just to pick up on what you're saying, one thing I will say is that I enjoyed Ant-Man a whole lot more than I enjoyed The Age of Ultron.
I definitely enjoyed it more than Avengers 2.
So why is that?
Because it was more intimate. You know what I mean? With Avengers 2, I like Avengers 1 a lot because I knew all those characters from their individual movies, so I like all of them. And then I had to see them come together, which I've never seen before, which was interesting. And then they butt heads, and then they learned to work together, and each character was given their due. You know what I mean? So it was a good movie. It was a good ensemble movie. And I think Avengers 2, there was really nothing to discover. I feel like nothing was discovered in that movie. It was just revisiting those guys. The events of that movie didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then it was over.
Yeah.
But with this movie, I told my brother when it was over, I go, did you notice there was no blue light shooting into the sky? Every movie feels like it has to be like worldwide consequence. And not only that, but it has to be these visual effects that show you a new way of the world being destroyed.
Yeah.
And even last night, actually, on HBO, the movie Into the Storm was on.
Okay.
And my friend was just like, hey, look at this. And it was like planes being lifted up by a tornado and smashed into each other. And I said, I am not impressed. I can't remember how I said it, but something to that effect, where it was like, nothing impresses me anymore. Planes crashing into each other, I'm not impressed. Like, I've seen this. It looks like a visual effect. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. But like in Ant-Man, it's not about spectacle. It's about stakes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like Paul Rudd's stakes with his daughter, Paul Rudd's stakes with not being caught by the law, with figuring out how to, pull off this heist. And then at the very end of the movie, this was something I was going to bring up later, but one of my favorite shots in the movie was the villain, Corey Stoll, what's his name? Darren Cross. He's a Yellow Jacket, the villain.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he doesn't try to blow up Maine or like New Jersey or something like that.
Right.
He goes to Paul Rudd's daughter's bedroom.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that I care about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And there's this wonderful shot where you're in a little girl's bedroom and you see this frightening freak of like a suit. And then you see the little girl and there's this blast of light behind her and she's screaming. And I was like, that's what I grew up with. Like this scary thing in a girl's bedroom.
Yeah.
And that gets to me.
Well,
you know what I mean?
here's I wanted to share a portion from my review, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
I said ultimately stakes is what it all comes down to.
Okay, there you go.
Right. I say even with a teeny tiny hero, the reason Ant-Man works is that it has a setup you can get your arms around.
Yep.
It's not about a digital James Spader raining deep impact on humanity. Instead, it's a smaller, story about heroes and legacies and fathers and daughters.
Yep.
I
100% agree, and I think that's why this movie gets to you and why you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it's I've said this before. Like, I think that first, a couple of points actually. It made about $57.2 million, and right away the press is out there with the knives.
Right.
And they're like, this is proof that Marvel is done. They're finished. It's over. They might just cancel Infinity War, cancel Civil War, even though you're already filming,
Right.
And the truth is $57.2 million over 3 days for a movie that, first of all, cost $130 million, which is, relatively speaking, not that much.
Sure.
But second of all, this is a movie about Ant-Man.
Right, yeah. It was like a C-list character.
Yeah. The C-list would be very gracious in accepting him.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's one of those things where when all is said and done, this is going to make probably around $150 million domestically.
Right.
Assuming the word of mouth holds up. And I have no reason to think, by the way, the word of mouth won't be phenomenal on this, because I'm just based on social media, I'm seeing recommendations from people who can't be arsed to care about these things.
Right.
So that tells me that there is going to be a bit of a shelf life for this. But I mean, I appreciate the fact that Marvel is able to say, you know what, we can use an Avengers to allow for an Ant-Man.
Yeah, I would
You know
really
what I mean?
love to think that that's what they're thinking.
I mean, I think that has to be what they're thinking because of the way the movie is.
Yeah.
You know, I love the fact I'm watching it, and we've got Paul Rudd in Baskin Robbins, and this guy's like, "Hey, I want a burger," and he's like, "This is Baskin Robbins," and I'm watching this and I'm laughing because it's hilarious, and then I'm like, "This is a Marvel movie."
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like, you can have a scene like this in a Marvel movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that,
totally agree.
and that's what I love is that we were able to do that. Now we're sort of skirting around the Marvel portion of the story, which is arguably represented by Hank Pym, who worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. and whatnot. I think Michael Douglas is fantastic in this movie.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and he has to say some pretty silly stuff in here.
Yeah.
And like it was really cool seeing him just like treat it completely at face value.
He plays it straight.
Yeah.
Well, and he brings a gravitas. I think the casting is very. Somebody said this online, where Ant-Man is basically Batman Beyond the movie.
Okay, sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, yes, it is. But we have this phenomenal special effect right when the movie starts.
Oh man, yeah.
Now, I'm talking, of course, about Michael Douglas being de-aged to appear as he did in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And I've seen the movie twice now, and the second time I was trying to find the seams.
Right. Sure.
And I couldn't.
It looks unbelievable. And I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I was just studying the face, and I was like, so here we are.
Yeah.
Like,
we're right.
Yeah.
You know, like when you think about like back in 2010, they made Tron Legacy, and the big effect there was de-aging Jeff Bridges, but he looked dead-eyed and weird.
Yeah. Not terrible. Not off. I mean, it deserves compliments, but it didn't meld into the film.
It was just off, just slightly.
Yeah.
Like there was a little bit of uncanny valley.
Yes.
We've skateboarded over the uncanny valley.
Yeah. I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, yes, you can tell it's an effect.
Sure.
Because it's an effect. But, I mean, aside from having 1980s Michael Douglas, in a time machine,
right?
Like, pretty damn good.
Well, I watched that scene, and I'm like, man, I want to live in the alternate universe where Michael Douglas made a whole series of Ant-Man movies back in the 80s.
And they could if they had the money.
Right? Yeah. But I really liked his storyline, and I responded to the relationship between him and Evangeline Lilly, who plays his daughter.
I agree.
And again, there was nothing earth shattering about this movie. Like this is not The Sixth Sense or something. I mean, there's no like major revelations, but to me it's just a very solid usage of the superhero formula to tell an enjoyable story that does a few different things with the beats that
I agree. And like there was that moment. Sometimes when I watch a movie, again, we say this all the time, you and I, like we know movies so well that we can see the ones and zeros a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's not to sound like arrogant. It's something we combat, I think, sometimes as we're watching a movie.
Absolutely.
And when a good movie supersedes that's when we love a movie. And when that happens sometimes, or when a moment happens and I didn't expect it, or I'm like that's what I wish it would do, I will actually out loud go, yep. Or I'll be like, yes. Or I'll say something like that because I'm like, that's kind of what I wanted you to do. And there's a moment. Oh, okay. Oh, good.
No, I was gonna say, what were some of those moments for you?
Well, the moment, one of them was the Michael Douglas Evangeline Lilly scene where they sort of argue, and then she leaves, and then he starts talking about her, and just about daughters and whatnot, and then we cut to her listening.
Sure.
And it's funny because we've seen that before. Obviously the person overhearing something from another room, but it was very unexpected to me that it was just like, no, she's gone. You know what I mean? But they are actually like, no, like this is about her caring about him and him caring about her, and it felt very genuine to me. And I truly felt that moment between them and the hurt that they had, but they longed to have that sort of corrected. And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I'm glad they did that. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the supporting cast. Now Michael Pena has been getting a lot of pub, I think, for sort of stealing the movie.
Yeah.
And Michael Pena has been around forever, it feels like. And it feels like this is like the highest profile role he's had, even though he starred as like Cesar Chavez. It's like, he was great in this.
Oh, totally.
He was hilarious.
Yeah, super memorable, really funny. Yeah, and they did a really great job of like the camera, or the director, I should say, actually did a really good job of capturing his humor, I thought.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and they have his he said and she said and she said and he said like that, and that becomes a recurring.
So these flashbacks, yeah, where you see the flashback and the characters, the actors in those scenes are mouthing his narration.
Right. It's really clever.
Yeah.
And then of course that leads up to at the end of the movie we tie into the idea that Ant-Man is now going to become a part of this bigger Marvel universe. Now obviously the big point of contention that ultimately led to Edgar Wright dropping out was the fact that they wanted to tie this in. I mean, it's part of the Marvel universe. They wanted it to be more explicit. Do you feel that the ways in which they've situated this in the Marvel universe were distracting, or were they effective?
I thought ultimately they were effective.
Okay.
I did find the Falcon scene sort of tacked on. Gratuitous
a little bit?
Gratuitous, that's a better word for it. Uh-huh. Yep, I did feel that.
Why?
I felt like it was in the execution, maybe, because I feel like it still could have kind of worked. Because the whole thing, the way that it plays out, is that Ant-Man has to go sort of infiltrate a building, and then he comes to find out it's the Avengers headquarters.
Right.
And I until that point, I kind of enjoyed the fact that when Michael Douglas's character is like, to Paul Rudd, like, hey, we need you for this thing, and he's like, well, dude, why don't you call the Avengers?
Right.
I like that little like world building, name dropping thing, because then it all felt like of a piece.
Sure.
So I was like, oh, Paul Rudd knows about the Avengers. He lives in a world where that thing happened in New York, and I liked all that.
Sure.
But when he went, and then all of a sudden Falcon appeared, and he feels like kind of a second tier character to begin with. You know what I mean?
The Falcon does.
The Falcon does, and he just kind of gives him this big hero shot, and I was like, well, I don't really feel that way about Falcon. You know what I mean? And then there's this long sort of thing. It didn't feel as organic to the Ant-Man film as I thought it could, as it felt like we're going to have an Avengers moment here for like 2.5 minutes.
Sure.
I didn't hate it, but it didn't feel as organic as it could have, I thought. You?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it's one of those things where partially, that moment was spoiled for me in the week leading up to the movie's release.
Okay.
And I think I would have, I didn't dislike it, but I would have enjoyed it more had I not known it was coming at all.
Yeah, sure.
And
I didn't dislike it either. I just didn't feel much toward it.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of, like, I wonder, was that the thing? Was that the straw that broke the camel's back,
I would hope not, because I felt like if the rest of the movie was Ant-Man, and then you just got to do this one little scene as a little stipend for Marvel, then like, oh, whatever. You know what I mean? He could have figured out a cool way to do it. I would hope it was not just that.
I think if nothing else, it pays off the ending.
Oh, for sure.
And so that's kind of like, all right. It's funny because when Michael Douglas is Hank Pym, by the way, the character he plays. He's telling Scott Lang, who's played by Paul Rudd, like, oh, it's this facility in upstate New York. I was like, I remembered. I was like, oh, wait, that's the new Avengers facility is in upstate New York.
Oh, funny.
So I remembered that from the end. So I was like, I'll bet you it's the new Avengers thing. So that reveal I thought was really cool.
Yeah, sure. Oh, it was a funny reveal, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think to me, I like being able to explore these smaller corners of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I totally agree. And going back to what we said about Deadpool, saying that it might not make $100 million, I think that's fine. Like,
Right.
I wish studios would do that more. I wish they would make like $20 million movies and be happy they made 80.
Right.
Letting it be a good $20 million movie. And
Right.
with that said, I hope Marvel feels comfortable doing that, like making smaller budgeted movies, knowing it's not going to make, Iron Man money.
Yeah.
But like, we're going to make
That's okay.
a good, we want to make this cool little story, and it's going to tie into everything, and it'll make less. But like, we're cool with that. Like, I hope that's the case.
Well, it's like the way I see it, like you've got Captain America Civil War coming up. There's like $1 billion guaranteed.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Captain America fights Iron Man and everyone else is $1 billion. There's your basement. You've got 2 Infinity War movies coming. There's $2 billion total.
Right.
Like there's your basement. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in other words, you've got the ability to say, well, let's leverage one Captain America Civil War to give cover to one, Black Panther and Doctor Strange. Like not all of these movies have to be playing in the same field. We can have having grown up reading the comics, it's kind of how it was, right? You got the Avengers, and then you've got like Nomad and Sleepwalker and like all
Sure.
and some of those books succeed, some of them don't, but you have like the standards, and then you have the ones that you kind of allow to exist, and you see what'll work.
Right.
That's how it was when I was a kid. Now, I mean, I don't read comics anymore monthly, but I see like, there's like 50 X-Men titles, and it's like, how about some variety, guys?
Right.
So for me, it's like they haven't announced Ant-Man 2, but I wouldn't mind seeing one. I mean, my heart wouldn't be broken if we never saw another Ant-Man.
Right. Sure.
But I would, I know that, like, we know that we're going to see Scott Lang again, but we'll only see him playing on these big canvas stories, and I like the small canvas, no pun intended, of this movie.
Yeah, and it's nice having this movie. So if he shows up in another movie, we have the backstory already.
We have the context. And that's kind of the interesting thing is, and I said this, I think, on Facebook, that like by virtue of existing within the Marvel universe, the shelf life is extended indefinitely for this film.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a bunch of people who skipped Ant-Man because they heard the title and they're like, no thanks. And then he'll show up in Captain America Civil War, and they'll be like, oh, I should go back and watch that.
Mm-hmm. And they'll have like a nice little gem waiting for him.
Yeah, exactly. Now, talking of Captain America: Civil War, we should mention the after credit sequence, the after credit sequence.
I was going to bring this up, yeah.
So this is kind of interesting. I was reading about this actually before we started recording. That clip is actually from the dailies for Captain America: Civil War.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because if you look at it, the lighting and everything is different. It looks like a Russo brothers shot.
Yeah, that's. I didn't even think about it, but absolutely, yeah.
Right. So apparently, they were still trying to figure out what the post-credit scene was going to be, and then Kevin Feige saw that in the dailies, and was like, "That's it."
Right.
That's and because the original plan was that the after-credit scene was going to be Scott tracks down. If you remember the one guy. And I wish I remembered his name, but the guy who Corey stole, Darren Cross makes the deal with. He steals the cross particles.
Okay.
And you just see him run out.
Okay.
The guy who, like, in the flashback, Hank Pym slammed his face into the table.
Yeah, the Hydra guy.
The Hydra guy, exactly. So we were gonna have Scott Lang like track him down and basically wrap up that storyline.
Right.
And what they realized was, like, let's just leave him out there, and we've got something to pick up on if we ever come back to it,
Yeah. Well, there was that, and then there was also the Wasp.
So the mid-credits sequence.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because midway through the movie with Evangeline Lilly, I was thinking, I like her a lot because I watched Lost, and I was like, that's really interesting. Like, if I was this actress, right, and I was going to be in a Marvel movie, would I sign up to be someone's daughter who explains everything? Or would I, like, hold out and want to be, flying around and shooting things out of my hands.
Sure.
And it's funny because then at the end, what they do is they tease, Hank Pym's wife apparently was Wasp, right?
Yeah.
And she had the suit and she could shrink as well, but she got lost into the quantum realm, which anyone who watched the movie knows what I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched the movie, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Go see it.
But yeah. But anyway, so then the teaser in the middle is that there was a second suit, and Hank Pym gives it to his daughter, and is basically like, have at it. Yeah. And then I was sort of like, that's why she's in the movie. Because,
so that came as a surprise to you?
Oh yeah, I'm not very familiar with these characters, so I wasn't like.
It's interesting because the Hope Van Dyne, she's created for the movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because in the comics, Hank Pym is basically a contemporary of like Cap and Tony Stark and those guys.
Right.
He's not an old man, but that's kind of I was like, of course they're gonna have Hope become Wasp. Like I was like, how can they not?
Sure.
That seems like the only logical way, because I was kind of thinking with you where I was like, you don't get Evangeline Lilly to not be a superhero.
Right, exactly. And she will, as far as we know, I don't know when Miss Marvel or whatever's coming out, but she'll, there's been much to do about not having very many female superheroes so far. So it looks like now we will. Eventually.
Yeah, although she's not in Captain America Civil War.
Right.
So, but Scott Lang will be, as you see in that post-credit scene.
Right.
So we don't know when she'll show up.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Kevin Feige gave an interview and he talked about this, where he said that they didn't want to have a situation where she basically flits in and out of Captain America Civil War, and that's the first time you see her in her costume. They want it to be a moment.
Right.
So maybe they're saving her for Ant-Man 2. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
But you know what? It's folks, go see it. It's a lot of fun. It's again, as a family experience, I thought it was fantastic. There's a little bit too much profanity, maybe, but it's of all the Marvel Studios movies, this is the one that I think is absolutely, you can take your kids to see it and they'll love it.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other thoughts about Ant-Man before we wrap up?
No, it's funny when you say that about the profanity. I just rewatched Goonies recently, and I think it had less profanity than the Goonies.
That's true.
Take that with a grain of salt.
That's very funny. It's interesting because we were just talking about at the beginning of the show, we were talking about Chris Columbus, and he was of course, he wrote the Goonies. Uh-huh. And he wrote Gremlins and stuff. And I think it's interesting how both Goonies and Gremlins are kind of like, there's rumblings about rebooting them, which I hope doesn't happen. But when you watch both of those movies, Gremlins and Goonies, they're still they hold up just fine.
Dude, like I said, I rewatched Goonies recently. It's so good.
Yeah, it's
just so good.
There's no reason to ever it's just like Back to the Future we talked about last time, where Robert Zemeckis is like, never as long as I'm alive. Same with these, and what is it about that? Like, why is it that they were able to make these timeless movies then, and where has that gone?
I honestly feel like it's the characters. I think that all the Goonies, like, they're all. I never really watched it as an adult. I think I watched it maybe in my 20s. But now that I've learned more about movie making and screenwriting and what over the years, watching it, I was like, every single character, without being glaringly obvious, is completely clearly drawn.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And they all have their own sort of interests and relationships with each other. And you can sort of relate to all of them in different ways. And, that's what you think about. There was a lot of adventure, of course, going on. And the thing is, it's a tangible adventure. You know what I mean? Like, you could imagine all that stuff possibly happening because it was all sets and real things that the kids were actually touching. And I really believe it's the characters. I think that's why. And even Back to the Future. When you think about Back to the Future, I never even noticed it until I watched the behind the scenes. But for as much as you think of it as a special effects movie, there's really only like a handful of special effects in the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really about the story and caring about Marty getting his parents together and coming back. So good story, good characters will trump anything. I know that should be a given and everyone should already know that, but I don't think people do. So
well, there we go. And when you talk about good story, good characters, that's a good summation for why Ant-Man worked for both of us.
yeah,
And I think
enjoyable characters, definitely.
Folks, I think I should tell you something because I'd been talking about this movie with Brian for a long time, and he was skeptical going right up into when he saw it in the theater. So it won him over.
Oh yeah,
it softened that harsh, coarse old man heart of his.
Yeah, that's right. It grew 3 sizes that day.
Ant-Man was like the Kevin McAllister to Brian being that old neighbor guy. Forget his name, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
Old Man Marley.
There you go. Thank you, Old Man Marley. So with that, we will be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking about Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. No, we won't. We'll be talking about, that would be 4 years ago before we started the show. We'll be talking about Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
I can't wait. I keep forgetting about it.
I know. It's weird, and it feels like it's almost going to get lost this summer.
Yeah, which is too bad. I love those movies.
So lots to talk about. We may or may not have a special guest next time. We will see. But regardless, Brian, where can people...
I don't even know.
That was a weird reaction. Brian, where can people find you online?
They can find me at everythingbrian.blogspot.com, Brian with an I. I have a Twitter that I never check at everythingbrian. And you can currently find me, a story I wrote is in the current issue of Bob's Burgers Comics, which you can find at any comic book store or Amazon.com.
There we go. And I am at Zackie'sCorner.com. That's the AKIS Corner. I'm also at the Huffington Post, where my movie reviews go up regularly. I want to share, by the way, the fact that for a brief while there, my Ant-Man review was the top story on Yahoo News.
That was super cool. Yeah.
I would assume not for everybody, but certainly for people who follow that type of stuff, it came up as the top story, which was certainly a validation that of something. I don't know. If nothing else, it's a validation of my brother-in-law working at Yahoo, and maybe he put in a good word for me. I don't know. I'm assuming,
No.
All right, what the hell? I'll take credit. On the merits, damn it. But you can look for my review of Pixels later in the week, as well as the transcript of my talk with Jeffrey Hatcheras. So look for that. And of course, we are at facebook.com/MovieFilm Podcast. We're also at MovieFilmPodcast.com. You can also find the show at iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Please do leave us a review, leave us a star rating, let us know how you're doing. You can also email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. And I think that ends the litany, Brian.
Yeah, sounds good to me. It was fun chat.
As always, a good time. This is episode 75, and here's to 75 more, and even more after that. This is the Movie Film Podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, friends. It's the Movie Film Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zachy